Hello and welcome to the May 2023 Koha US Cataloging Special Interest Group. Nice to see you all. Lauren, linking entry fields.
Okay, so I am wanting linking fields to work, and I have been scrounging around in Bugzilla, which is a very dangerous and scary place to go, I found out, and tried to compile things that are related to linking, but linking fields and how they work and how we can make them work. So I originally created one doc thinking, oh, this will help. And then I realized I needed two. So I'm going to put them in the chat. One is what fields to use for control fields to pull the information from. And I'm going back and forth on how I feel about all of the options. And then the other one, which is really important, and I'm still working on like the research, is what's making them show up, like making them display in Koha. We've written some local XSLT for bugs or for linking fields as we discover that we need them. And I'm like, it would be nice if the community could help and like, okay, I use this one. We can go ahead and just make them all available so that whenever in the future I do want to use something, I can. And we have documentation on this is when you use that field. So for some of them, we originally had Easy Analytics, which puts every linking field known to man in the 773. It's been fun separating all of our online resources and putting them in the 776, which is for different formats. So that now it'll say for print version, click here. For online version, click here instead of in something. We added code to make the translation of a book because we're a language organization. We have a lot of translations of a lot of books. So linking those, especially because you want your library to link to the other translation in your library, not necessarily a search, like a uniform title search that would show up all libraries. It would be nice to just, if you're in the record, link that way. So, but we had to write our own XSLT to make that appear. And I would like to have something where the community, especially those who are unsupported like me, can share. And those of you who have the lovely Bywater or Equinox or PTFS or all these other lovely Koha supporters, that you would be willing to share
Yeah, we're Bywater. Yeah, we're Bywater supported, and we have custom XSLT making all our linking entry fields work, linking from the subfield W in the 7XX fields to our 001 record control numbers. And they said they'd be more than happy to share the custom XSLT with the community.
There's a wiki page. Sorry, there's a wiki page.
Sorry. Go ahead.
All I was gonna say was there's a wiki page for XSLT. So what I would suggest is, like, Lauren, put your XSLT there and then link to it in a bug that says, I want this to be part of Koha standard. So I put the link to the wiki page in the chat. Sorry, Fred, go ahead.
Whatever, right? We just pointed out something that I was about to suggest their need for. When I did the author's catalog, I had to rewrite or modify a lot of XSLT files. And I have sort of a standard format for displaying a field that is indexed and displaying a field that is not indexed. So I can put those in. What I really had a horrible time with was the fields with an URL. I just sort of copied the 56 and okay, let's try this. So it's not clean, it's not pretty, but I do have an 858 that can display, actually it's the orchid. Um, uh, oh, sort of like LinkedIn, but it's just a link to your whatever you want to make available. So I have the orchid, and that's a clickable link, and then the person's name. So that's the X, Y, and Z fields.
Well, thank you. What I'm wanting, like anyone who's using the linking fields, I don't know if it'd be like a special group, but where we can chat and figure out, like, are we using them all the same? How are we using them differently? Is this something that has to stay like independently our own little code, or is this something that, hey, no, everybody who joins Koha, especially I can see academic libraries expecting Koha to do this, and it doesn't. K-12 libraries are like, it does everything I want it to. I use analytics. It's great.
Remember,
puts in the
Koha
chat.
is infinitely configurable.
Exactly. And I mean, I would love to see system preferences so that people can, a user can choose the fields on which the linking entry fields link, and then choose, do you use OCLC numbers? Yes, no, because they have weird prefixes.
So yeah, Heather, if you're the only one who cares, then
We care.
Yeah, I'm largely public, so it's less important, but I would really like to see like linking in the context of herborization working, like horizontal linking where these records are the same thing and I want to put a hold on the instance of the work rather than the specific record. So if we could tie that in, I'm in.
Exactly. It affects herborization absolutely, because these are the fields that that bring everything together. These fields are also going to be more and more important as people use RDA, because these are going to be the fields instead of a 740, 730. It's going to be these fields for this play is an adaptation of this work. And the linking can also become possible then when using uniform titles in say a 240 field or the linking entry field for herborization to bring everything together. So that sounds great. Those of us with the XSLT will work on getting it contributed to the XSLT library on the Koha Wiki and mentioned in Bugzilla. And Bugzilla need not be a scary place. Trust me, I am I'm sort of a Bugzilla enthusiastic beginner, and I comment on there all the time. I've entered bugs, and the Bugzilla experts and developers who are on it are 100% kind and helpful, and don't be afraid to just jump in. And many of us will help, especially if you simply put in a comment saying, any comment is helpful, especially from the users. And yeah, go for it, everyone.
Yeah, Lauren, I noticed on your notes, you had one that you've got a comment that says this is in Koha. So just putting that comment on the bug and saying, I think
Okay.
this is in, can somebody double check and resolve this if true or something like that? If you're not comfortable marking it resolved yourself.
Okay. Yeah, no, I am not comfortable. And some of them I'm like, all right, is it still needed because they like, has it been resolved by going through a different door?
And sometimes it is, and that's really valuable too, because sometimes
Okay.
that will point out something that's not clear in the manual or is missing in the manual, and that will get the attention of people who do contribute to the manual. And I've contributed to the manual too. And again, I'm an enthusiastic beginner, and the manual folks are incredibly helpful too. So manual contributions from users are super helpful because we can do things like screenshots from the real implementations to put in there and the actual directions and instructions that we find useful. And if one has no idea how to do it or wants to begin, just really email that main Koha list and just say, hey, I want to do, or put into, you can put a bug in Bugzilla and mark it manual and get help that way as well.
That would be extremely helpful. Because I know that there's been several times when I went through the manual, I understood everything and followed the steps, but perhaps people who made it were so familiar with what Koha was supposed to do or what the terminal was supposed to do that they just didn't think of some things that were quite obvious to them. Like when I did my first installation, I couldn't pass the default Apache page, you know, the It Works page, because I didn't know I was supposed to clear my cache. I didn't find that instruction anywhere. So that would be really helpful to have something that might be obvious, but it's not to a lot of people.
Yes, and things like that are very helpful to add to the manual or mention in Bugzilla to be added to the manual, because it's simple to add in the manual and is extremely helpful.
Yeah, this doesn't have to do with cataloging, sorry, but it does have to do with Koha. And see, someone asked me to change in the patron registration screen card number to employee number because we don't have library cards. We just use the employee number on the back of our badge. Okay. Turns out I had to go and edit what wasn't an INC file, it was a TT file. So again, XSL, but while I was doing that, I thought, okay, well, our patron registration screen has far more stuff than we need. Maybe I can hack the XSLT. Yeah, to take those out while I'm doing it. Because last time I heard you have to use jQuery, and I don't know jQuery. Well, it turns out there is a little setting in the administration hierarchy. Yes, hide unwanted fields. A lot easier than heck. So yeah, maybe Koha already does what you want and you just haven't found it yet.
Yeah, so it's always good to ask. And well, you might think that that's not cataloging, but the patron records are metadata about patrons, so they're kind of cataloging records for people.
I think you have a very broad definition for catalog. Which is, I'm not saying that to be pejorative.
Indeed. And also I will point out the circulation special interest group for Koha US is restarting. So
Next Thursday during this time slot. Please join us.
And if you want
Brad,
some,
you can come and share your illustration for the circulation group.
there's some simple jQuery to do what you just wanted, Fred, if you want to not edit template files, because that gives me nightmares.
jQuery gives me nightmares. So
Okay, we can meet in the middle somewhere.
yeah, mostly it's okay, something new I need to learn.
I found that really simple. I went into our administration to hide fields in the patron records that we don't use. And so I guess I'm leaning that way in the nightmare scale.
Y'all totally need to join us next Thursday because I'm still learning about patron template fields. That could be our topic. Y'all can join and share. All of the Koha special interest groups all overlap, I have discovered.
So
Especially
very
the-
true.
Especially the sysadmin SQL group.
The cataloging group has a bit of everything.
It's all
Unsig to
cataloging.
rule them all, and in the darkness to bind them.
I thought that was the education group.
Probably.
Well, and we are trying to use our powers for good instead of evil, right?
Oh yes.
Well, does anybody have anything else they'd like to bring to the group?
Most of my problems have been trying to get around IS changing our IP address. Haven't done a lot of cataloging. Though I did compare the old authors catalog to the new authors catalog. I found about 600 records that didn't make it in the new one. Now I have to figure out, okay, why? Or just redo them.
Ooh.
Just means
Just
changing
import
a
'em
few
back in.
fields.
Just import them back in.
Well, I changed a lot of the mark tags. For
This
the
is why
new
you need to be
improved
careful about changing mark tags. It's the danger.
Yeah. I wrote down what I did though.
Well, it's possible that this will be a very short meeting, which is not surprising since we also had the afternoon meeting.
Mhm.
All right. I guess this. Oh,
I have a question. Are the afternoon meetings every Thursday, or do you have another day for them?
the afternoon meetings are experimental this year and they are quarterly.
Mhm.
So let me go to Koha US, koha-us.org calendar. I will put the link in the chat. And let's see. I believe our next afternoon meeting is going to be in September.
Okay.
Oh, so will it be at the conference?
That's a good question.
Right, I am remembering the conference is in September.
I generally err on the side of having more cataloging meetings because I'd rather have more meetings and have them be short than try to cram everything in. So far, we are scheduled for our morning meeting, my time, Pacific time in the US for September 7th. And looking at the calendar. Looking and looking, I'm not seeing. And our next afternoon meeting might be.
That's okay. I mean, for me personally, this time also works well because it usually gives me enough time to get home from work. And I can usually get there on time. And I'm definitely going to need some help with cataloging. I'm still waiting for our IT department to export the records we have in the in-house created system. So that's obviously going to take some time, and I will need to learn and maybe test how exactly to stage these records for import. And I will definitely have some errors created when I was just starting out to catalog. And it would be useful if anybody could recommend the best place to check what to do when you come up against an error. Do you skip that record? Do you try to correct it? What would you do?
I found that the hardest thing is to find the record. And so then I would take it out of the batch and figure out why. But Lauren seems to have a better idea.
I have, so in MarcEdit, there is this wonderful thing called Validate Marc Records. Make sure you check the box. Group errors together. I didn't do that for a while, and I mean, like you'd get a 020 error, and then a 100 error, and then 242, and then a 020. It took you forever. When you lumped them all together, it's like, oh, I fixed this one. Okay, because it's usually indicators are wrong. That's a common one. Or you accidentally put you repeated a subfield. Or the other thing that happens to me a lot, I would fix a subject in the 650 to put in the 630 and then forget to put it in the 630. And so I would get an error because there's two P's, because there's Old Testament and then the New Testament and the book. And so it would give me, or there's a language and it would give me an error. And I'm like, that's because I forgot to move the 630 to the 650. So that Validate Marc Records is a wonderful tool in MarcEdit. And there's two ways you can get to it. Should I actually show how to get to it now that I've
Thank you.
While you're
Yes, please.
setting it up, my author's catalog Mark records, which is where I have the biggest trouble uploading because of one little thing, are just so non-standard that Validate doesn't work for me. But I have used it on real cataloging records, and yes, it's very nice.
Okay. Here we go.
And one last question. When I do get around to importing these records, would you recommend importing everything and trying to resolve it, or should I go year by year? Because some years I catalog maybe, I don't know, 500 books. Other years I have 1,000 books, and so on and so forth.
How much coffee do you have?
It would depend. Sometimes it would depend on the errors. So what you could do is like have them all separate and then join them all together, and then do tools, validate mark records, group results by error. That is a very important checkbox.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I can copy it, paste it in Notepad, and go through, and I can either just individually. Okay, where's Notepad?
I think I just thought of a new MarcEdit enhancement.
Terry Reese is collecting enhancements right now on the MarcEdit email list.
Yes.
So I can now jump to that record. And what was the problem? The indicator for the 650 is wrong. So, because it needs a subfield here. So I could either fix it that way, or a lot of times I will actually just look at the field and go, oh, what needs to happen to the indicators, and then edit the indicators. The tool, you can also get that same Mark validator is in reports, and you can do that. I can't remember what validate record structure means, but if you don't click that group results by error, you get this.
Yeah, you get it record by record then.
So there's times when you would want it that way. And so like if they were all together and you have a lot where like, it looks like all in the same year had the same record or the same problem, then you could export it out. But MarcEdit, I've edited files that had, I think the largest was like 21,000 records, and it handled it no problem. But I do have a fast computer.
Could go back to the screen. Oh, never mind.
What?
Too late. But the box where it says delete records with errors. How about asking Terry to say move records with errors to a new file?
You tell him that is a wonderful.
Yes, please. Please tell him that, Fred.
I'll write this down.
To new file or existing file, because then you could simply get all your records with errors into one file. Then the records without errors can go into Koha, and then you could take your time fixing your records with errors.
Yeah.
I find
I've seen that one. Sorry.
Well, and luckily Terry's really, really nice, and he'll tell you if it exists and how to get to it. I find that if I have a larger file, I do this very infrequently, but if I have a larger file, I group the errors. If I have a very small file of records, I don't, and I just look at them record by record. Yeah, thank you, Lauren.
Welcome. I don't remember when I discovered that, but now the only thing it will not tell you is if your records have problems with the item record, like you forgot to put the library code. And Koha won't take it because it needs an item record the first time you import. And you forgot to or you spelled out the library name in MarcEdit and Koha, it wants the code, or you spelled out the item type in MarcEdit and Koha wants the code or the collection code.
Right. Because yeah, the 952 line for Koha is Koha specific. And also it depends on how your Koha installation is set, rather does it require item records or not? Which fields in the item records does it require or not? Yeah.
Yeah, I have mine set just look for item records, but it doesn't have to have them. I thought that was the only thing you could do. Guess not.
So that's another reason why it would be good to have outside support, which I can only dream about at this point.
I've achieved everything by going around our IT folks.
It seems to be working okay so far. It's taking me longer than I want, but I get to the solution in the end. And you guys have been really, really helpful with that. Wouldn't have been able to do it purely on my own.
That's why we're here. I've learned a lot and I'm trying to contribute what little I know.
Exactly. That is the spirit of Koha. Koha in Maori means gift, but a gift with an obligation to share and give back. And I think all of us here have received, even those of us who are supported, we still have received so much help from the wonderful community, and we're totally happy to pass it on. And one reason I really, really value the opportunity for involvement is that I learn so much while I'm involved.
And the Koha folks are pretty much all really fun to hang around with.
Completely.
Now, Lauren, I have a question for you.
Meeting unless someone tells a joke and everyone starts laughing.
I think, Lauren, it was you that were talking about Elasticsearch and why your IT guy in Germany doesn't want to. And he mentioned that there was a problem with the Elasticsearch folks and the licensing. And I looked it up.
Versions of things, I think.
Yeah, I looked it up and I didn't really understand. Has anyone else heard about Elasticsearch and why some groups might be leaving it and or suggesting OpenSearch instead? I haven't tried it. I don't want to.
Elasticsearch may be becoming non-open source is the issue. And as unsupported, do we want to like adopt something that we're going to have to go off? Yeah, I'm having to make some decisions on other areas of my life that are the same type thing. Like, okay, do I want to go through all the trouble of learning this if it's going to change in 6 months? Just wait. Or find a way for the new thing to work.
Maybe it's something we should add to the agenda for the general meeting. What do you think?
I won't be able to make the general meeting. I have another meeting in that time slot. So you could bring it up and and possibly ask, and I will watch the recording. But this month I don't know how, but I mean, I have more meetings. I feel like I'm living one continuous meeting
It's,
every day, and I'm an introvert. So I'm like, okay.
I hear you.
yeah.
There, Brad, there is some discussion about this on this bug that I just linked, so
Ah,
that might be
thanks.
what you want to point to at the meeting.
Yeah, I
There
don't.
actually also may be a different bug because his has Elasticsearch 8 on it. Which I could look up.
Oh yeah, I have that one too here. 33353 is 8.
That one. Yes, I think that's the. I think that is the bug that.
Yeah, I think.
Because you want the newest version. You don't want the version that will. I'm also learning in IT, one of my medical devices only works on a Samsung that's 2 years old, and Samsung only supports their phone for 3 years. So why go to, we're like, why did they choose to use a phone that's only going to work 1 year? The two IT people need to, better communication needs to happen somewhere. I'm just glad I'm not on a Samsung. Though my phone isn't even supported, so.
I don't know. I like my Samsung.
I like my Apple.
I was very disappointed to have to turn in or stop using my i5 because it just sort of ran out of space. Nice and small, but
Backup, migrate, backup, migrate, backup, migrate.
yeah. See, I have been using. Let's see if I can call up the page. Okay.
But yes, so we don't lose track of this. Fred, please bring up these elastic bugs to Koha US.
Okay, when I started searching for Elasticsearch instructions, I couldn't find anything from Koha. I'm sure it's there, but that was sort of what I found was mostly the implementation. So I used this one from Koha Geek. He's provided a lot of really useful, interesting information. I think that's from 2021, and he says Koha won't work with anything more than version 6. Is that still true?
So that's listed. I just was poking around at this on the system requirements page of the wiki. It says that version 7 and OpenSearch version 1 are being tested. Version 8 cannot be used at the moment.
Okay.
Which was in March.
Yeah, I know it's probably right in front of me. Jason, how do you do this?
It's his superpower.
One of them.
One of
AV
them.
expertise is another.
Right?
I also make cookies.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
At Star Wars Day, we had to have star cookies.
Oh, of course.
Right. May the force be with you.
Yep. Let's see, I can't have cookies, but I can make Dora Wat, national dish of Ethiopia.
And super delicious.
And it takes a long time because you have to cook the onions for 45 minutes, and then you have to cook the onions for 20 minutes, and then you the onions. Or eventually then you can have
It's so worth it. And of course, you know, it takes time also to make the injera bread.
I My wife saw the recipe and said it talked about the fermenting process, and she said, "You're not making it." She doesn't like it anyway. Fortunately, there are a lot of places around where I live that sell it, including injera that is mostly teff rather than just barley.
Right? So delicious.
Sorry for the detour.
I hear y'all about the concern about, you know, when facing a steep learning curve, how long is this going to be? It's very difficult to gauge that. I mean, especially RDA 2.0, anyone? All I can say is I love Elasticsearch.
Yes.
And
It's
I
so much
found
more accessible.
yes, accessible and configurable. And I found the learning curve to actually be a lot shorter than I thought it would be.
Yes.
Is there a Koha Elasticsearch wiki or Elasticsearch template wiki where this is the standard customization so that people who are like, okay, we just installed it, now I have to configure it. What do I need to configure? Which fields do I need? Does something exist? Or because I hear Bywater has a template, but I don't know if because they mentioned that in their video on Elasticsearch, but I didn't know if there was like a wiki, I guess, for an Elasticsearch configure chart. Does anyone know? I'm thinking, in the future when one day.
This
Maybe.
doesn't really answer your question, but I did try to make or do a printout of the Elasticsearch configuration screen, and I ended up that didn't work because the fields don't show up and try to print it. So I ended up highlighting the whole thing with the mouse and pasting it into, I can't remember, Word, Excel, something like that, and creating a PDF. So that, okay, tedious but possible. And I think I have one, a modified one on medstarauthors.org under try this, or how to, excuse me.
And I'm not seeing anything on the wiki. Here's the top level category for Elasticsearch. I do know with the development of Elasticsearch, the idea was it does exactly what Zebra does. So when you switch, you're not going to lose any functionality, but you can build on that moving forward with more configurability. So I would guess whatever Bywater's using as the default might be just the baked-in default when you switch, but it could be different too.
Yeah, when I converted our library catalog to Elasticsearch, I didn't change anything. And it didn't work until Jason invoked his superpowers and showed me the thing that was really easy to find the second time. Oh, you have to do this. Click, click, click. Now it worked.
We've changed just a couple of things to make more fields like a little change the rankings and
Yeah.
add them to indexes, mostly titles, because as a maritime research collection, we do tend to get, I think, a little bit more title searching than is generally used in other collections, which are probably a little bit more keyword dependent.
Yeah, and I think the only thing we added was the 245H, that wasn't there out of the box, which is obsolete, I know, but we still rely on it pretty heavily. So we added that to the search.
It's been used a long time. It's in a lot of records.
What does it do?
It's a general material designation that predates the 3XX fields for what type of material you have, like electronic resource, cartographic.
For us, it was large print. Like we have our patrons are used to typing in like James Patterson large print, and that large print wasn't getting searched, so they weren't pulling results on James Patterson, which was concerning.
And it's non-standard, but I happen to think there's absolutely nothing wrong with having the subfield H and those 3XX fields in your records. I mean, I have one or the other in mind, but I'm not a general public library.
Well, yeah, I was playing, or I asked you folks about this a few months ago, I think, redoing the nursing exam books to have the program as the first thing after WY 18.2. I finally finished that, and the library hasn't crumbled yet. Yeah, if you're a small library and you're not sharing a lot of records, you can do whatever you want.
This is true. It's when you have a consortium is when that small library wants to do whatever it wants. It has negative implications for everybody else.
Well, and another thing is that old is not wrong. The 245 subfield H general material designation was valid and current for a long time. And for those records, for an AACR2 record, it is correct.
Yeah.
This is I don't understand question. Does the leader, when you tell it, like it's a AACR2 IS, I can't remember. There's a list of things that you tell it what cataloging rules you use. Does that affect like what does that change? If it's so I probably have a lot of records where that's wrong because I've just been like ignoring it.
Please, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my experience so far. I believe that Koha doesn't care.
Okay.
It's really only high level systems like OCLC that are going to that start caring.
I'm in the same consortium Lauren is, and I change that all the time to make it right when I see what it is, and it doesn't seem to make any difference in Koha. So I've not seen any effect on the records.
Like in author's catalog, so probably doesn't apply, but yeah, if you click in the leader field, Koha will automatically supply something. I just use that for all of my records. It's wrong, but Koha has not complained. MarcEdit doesn't like it.
Yeah, and MarcEdit can tend to operate at a higher level of validation and correction.
Yeah. I mean, that's certainly not a fault with MarcEdit, it's a fault with my records, but it does make validate a little more difficult.
I'm quickly going over to the US Mark homepage because I believe there's a value that can be used. Let's see. It's a little too complex for me to find it right now, but I believe if anybody ever runs across difficulties with this, there are ways to code your encoding level for your record as more of a minimal level, even if it's not. And then the cataloging source won't turn up as an error if you're validating in a higher level like MarcEdit. You can kind of trick it. Well, we have about 10 more minutes. Is there anything else anybody would like to bring to the group?
If I could throw out another question about linking fields. Sorry, I was late. Lauren sent me the link and then somehow I deleted it from my inbox. So I had to go find it in my trash.
No problem.
You can also go to Koha US and all the meetings are there.
Okay. I think Lauren probably explained we're working on linking fields in our consortium. And I have a question. So my library is in Germany and the rest of our libraries are around the world. But I import a lot of records from the German National Library, which uses hierarchical record structures a lot. And they use the linking on the W field, which works with use control number and Koha. They use W in 830 to link, for example, a monographic series with the series. And I haven't been able to make that work in our Koha. Does Koha support that at all? Is there something we can change, or would that need to be a bug that we put in to get it built in?
The 830 is usually an authority controlled field. So
Right.
yeah, that's usually how that is working with it doesn't link in the same way as linking entry fields with subfield W's. It's supposed to have authority controlled standard data so
Yeah.
that when that's clicked, like in the subfield T, it pulls up all the records that way, and they're standardized through that subfield 9, which is a Koha specific way of controlling. So it would be, if you wanted to move to a subfield W, to link to, say, one record for the whole series, say a serial record for the whole series, that would be a little non-standard and a little weird, but certainly doable. And what I would suggest is something not 830-ish for it, but maybe going more towards a child-parent relationship to that serial record, something more of like an analytic kind of thing.
And that's what I've done. I've used the 773 to a child parent. I think the German National Library is trying to move toward in implementing RDA, doing away with some of the distinctions between authorities and bibliographics and moving more to a linked data environment where there's one record that represents the serial, and they have a MARC record for that is linked with subfield W in the 830 of the individual volumes.
But again, it should not be an 830. It should be a 7XX field then.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. If it's marked.
So that's what I've been doing, is moving the link from 830 to 773. So I'll just keep doing that way.
That is exactly what I would do, because the 830 is monographic series, people, monographic. And if you are moving more towards the relationships and linking entry fields, you really are in the realm of serial, child, parent.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank
You
you.
probably all know this, but I discovered it a while ago and I'm still impressed by it. If you want to move one field to a subfield to another field and a subfield, MarcEdit can do that in a trice.
It does it brilliantly. And then there's also ways, and Anne Ryan is such a helpful person with the mark modification templates that can be used to modify records upon import into Koha.
Okay.
Yeah, and in Koha itself, it's very easy to just highlight the text and then drag it to the field that you wanted it.
Yeah.
I've had to do that quite a bit. It's like, why am I copying and pasting? Highlight, drag up. Okay, there we go.
Or if you are doing a record by record approach, the advanced bibliographic editor, you just change the field. It's like, it's not an 830 anymore. It's a 77.
Okay, I just learned 2 new things.
It's a good day.
I do original cataloging maybe once every 6 months, mostly OCLC records.
I'll also, before we go, throw out that having a serial record for an entire monographic series is quite common because it might be a monographic series, but it's open-ended, which makes it serial-ish. And oftentimes that is a real necessary thing for libraries to have for acquisitions because they subscribe to the monographic series and they're receiving them as serial issues. They just simply then go into a cataloging workflow for a monographic cataloging record, which will have a parent-child relationship to the serial record. And then the serial record can also be useful if people are then doing, like, sometimes the monographic series, they're small and they're also binding it like a serial.
And that's what I just came up with a series that we subscribe to that I think started out more like a periodical and has moved toward becoming a monographic series. And the current volumes, it has an ISSN, but each volume now also has an ISBN, and they have individual titles. So yeah, the workflow is for a serial, but that's really become a monographic series.
I have a collection of best editorial cartoons of the year from Pelican Press. And as far as I can remember, they've always had an ISSN and ISBN.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yes, and very traditional series will also throw out, say, it's our, the New Yorker does this, it's our annual fiction issue. And some collections might want a monographic record for that so they can have a 505 with all the authors and titles of the short stories in the fiction issue.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
I'm glad you asked.
Super helpful.
Everyone always ask your questions because I guarantee you're not the only person with the question. And it also helps those who cannot make the meeting and who are watching the recording later. Maybe they had the question. Well, it is the top of the hour. I'm going to stop the recording now.